Welcome to the webinar Resourcing Libraries to EU, a cooperation partnership supported in the framework of Erasmus Plus program between Public Libraries 2030, EBLIDA and PiNA. The webinar is about understanding the success factors of projects that contribute to achieving project success. These factors can vary depending on the nature of the project and the specific goals and objectives. In webinar, we will share some steps to help you understand the success factors of your project. In this section, we explore the key aspects of project results and impacts, focusing on understanding what is being achieved, who benefits from the project and how effectively it's being executed. Additionally, we examine the expected level of success within the defined project timeline or specific activities. Maya, let's start with you with the first question. How to define what we want to achieve with the project?
Yeah, coming back to needs analysis, especially like thinking about what we need, then we turn this into activities and also in the outcomes of the project. So it's very interconnected all together. So if we need, for example, a curriculum because we want to educate our librarians how to be a better leaders, then this really means that like we need to think about how we will structure the curriculum for the course. If we want to create like a new tool that will help blind people to read the books in certain level, then this means that we need to develop like rather a digital tool or something similar to that. If we want to invite young readers to the library, then we of course create a program which will somehow start to build enthusiasm in young readers. So it really depends on, like as we said before, how we structure the need analysis, how we follow our objectives, and then of course like develop a project idea which is based exactly on this what we need. So we are always fulfilling kind of like the missing gaps that we are noticing in our libraries, like what we want to achieve, and on basis of this we structure then what kind of outcomes to create.
In terms of outcomes and success, what can measure the success or impact of the project outcomes?
When we think about measurements, it's really important, like of course we always have like the number of people that are coming to our library or to our events, or the number of people who will attend the courses that we will prepare for them. But then there are also like a lot of things which are happening as well. We as a library, we are learning, we are opening the space to kind of like have, let's say, international projects in our libraries. And then of course, like always, a report can be something that it's measured, then a toolkit can be something that's measured, number of tools that we have developed in the framework, number of people who will participate in our survey, number of people who will come to help us and actively contribute to fulfilling the objectives of the project. So it's always like really when we structure this, how we will measure it, let's think as broad as possible. Would you add something?
Maybe here, if you have on one side the objectives that you would like to achieve, and then on the other you have activities with which you will achieve that. So it goes that for each activity you plan what are the indicators that will show you if you were successful. So it's easier, I think, to have activity 1 and say, okay, the qualitative indicators we are following, and this one, quantitative, are this one. So quantitative, how many people, what kind of reach, what kind of publications. Qualitative is what kind of change, what kind of understanding will be improved, what kind of competences will be increased, and then with that you always return to your aim. So it should be a connection between what you are measuring and how this is connected or impacts the objectives that you have planned.
And what about the specific targets that need to be set for each outcome?
Yeah, so when you have a baseline target, we call it, this is the state now. For example, we have 3,000 people that are visiting our libraries at this moment in average per day, let's say. And this is your baseline value, and you say that by this and this type of activities, we will increase this from the baseline to the target value, that it's going to be, let's say, plus 20%. Here, it's nice that you're realistic and that you really set these measures based on what you would like to achieve. So you can go with increasing the number and increasing the visibility, increasing the collaborations that you have. And you always go with where you are now and where you would like to come. And this places between is what you achieve with the activities, and then you also define with what you will measure that. Yeah? So if it comes to visits, it's easy because you probably have a list of attendance or a way how you apply where you're in the library. If you have number of books that's available, also you have. So always think where you're setting, you already know with what kind of instrument you will be able to measure that.
And Maya, what are the key performance indicators?
Exactly what Kaya has been mentioning now, so that we are always trying to predict like what will happen from the moment now. Like, so we have a status quo, and after the end of the project, so what is this path that we will come during the duration of our project? So how will we, like, let's say, increase the number of young readers in our libraries? If now 100 readers are coming to us, let's say we aim in 2 years, this number will increase for 200, so we will have 300 people coming. So 300 would be a key performance indicator. And always like really coming from this, that we have set like certain activities, then out of this we are planning as well the outcomes, and coming to this the indicators, how to measure them. So always really taking into consideration our reality, and also like keep being realistic in this, that we are not exactly like saying that we will have out of a sudden like 1,000 readers, because we know that this is like very hard to reach. But that we will aim to actually like create more enthusiastic readers, and then this will also kind of bring more young readers to our library. So really like we are always trying to think with these key performance indicators where we can actually come with the project that we will be implementing, in what kind of change these key indicators will bring in order to improve the status quo basically.
But can we really plan impact?
Very good question. I think to a certain extent, for sure, yes. And also projects are usually working. Also, we, I think, as an organization, always work with this, that we sometimes see the impact like 2-3 years after we have started something. Sometimes it might be even 10 years, but it is very visible. And more important, it's also when we are planning the next project. So let's say we have finished our first one. When we are planning all of the next projects, we always refer to this, that like we have already achieved something, some sort of impact, and we are then building on this. So we want to develop some programs further on, or we have in the framework of the project noticed that there is still like some missing pieces that we would like to fulfill, and we kind of upgrade the project with the second project. So also it's really important like to have this in mind, how to measure the impact, to be in constant contacts as well with all of our stakeholders, because also like, for example, when you are a library and you work very closely with your municipality, and municipality sees this improvement that you have created all together, I think this is also really important to kind of reflect together, like with partners, with different stakeholders, what kind of impact you have achieved during the project, and then build on that for the future work, and like also improving the let's say the status quo again in the future.
But there's also an important dimension of impact, because it makes you think, why did I set these goals? You know, for example, if you want to increase the level of people that enter library, you have to know what your impact is, what you are searching for, what you would like to achieve, and then return and be critical and say, okay, so will the number of people really contribute to that? or is there something else I have to be aiming for? So to plan an impact is important because it's your long run that you are chasing, and when you know where you are headed, then it's easier to set yourself milestones or key indicators that will define if you're really successful.
Maya, in terms of the communication plan, what are the basics when it comes to the communication plan?
Yeah, so the basic is that we don't forget to communicate what we are actually doing. So it's a joke, but on the other hand, it's really important how to structure the communication plan. Because of course, like also whenever, whether it's European Union or somebody else giving us money, of course they expect that they are as well visible, because with everything that we are doing, we are always kind of trying to rather improve what is happening in our local environment or what is happening on the level of EU. So it's really important, of course, to take into consideration the logos of the project funder and all of these things, but then as well dedicate a person who will really take care that like there is a communication strategy in the start, that all of the partners are actually actively contributing as well to this communicational plan, so that we don't forget about the social media, that we don't forget to put like the short description of the project on our homepage, that we don't forget to invite the media when we have some public events, because all of these pieces are really important, and like better the communication strategy, happier the donor in the end, of course. So it's really important to communicate like all the different steps, like when we are starting, for example, with the survey, that we would like to find out more on certain topic, like how well is like media literacy already happening in our local environment. So we really like set the channels where we want to spread all of these calls. Exactly the same it goes then with like informing about some public events that we are having. So we really think about like where our target groups are seeing certain information, so then also like really going into these channels so that like the information is reaching the people. And then when it comes to results, the same, like that we of course communicate to radio, television, newspapers, social media, of course, but then especially when it comes to Erasmus Plus or Interreg or these kind of projects, that we communicate as well this on the platforms, because then it's as well easier to become like a good practice and people can see what we actually have achieved, which it's really important in the end. And also yeah, they can reach whatever we have created, so that web page, it's not just another web page that we have created and will be forgotten after the end of the project, but it's something that we want to build on in the future. So it's really important that we spread the news of what we are doing. So yeah, very important part of the project.
So to have the whole strategy and to include a lot of different media as well.
Exactly.
You want to add maybe something, Kaya?
Maybe here, think about all the resources you already have. Sometimes we like to forget that maybe a newsletter that we have, if a library has, I don't know, a yearly book that puts out, if you already have a yearly plan events, if you go and present your libraries on some stands at other public events, all these are means that you can use when you are communicating your project. So you don't necessarily always have to invent new forms, but you can really use the existing platforms that you have for communicating with the target audience, with potential stakeholders, or any other target group you defined is important and relevant to include in the communication process.
Okay, thank you. When developing a project communication plan, there are several factors to consider to ensure effective and efficient communication. Identify the key stakeholders, determine what you aim to achieve through communication, identify the key messages and the most appropriate communication channels for them, determine the frequency and timing of communication activities, and ensure that the communication plan facilitates two-way communication, monitor and evaluate regularly. Kaya, what does it mean, this in reality?
All that has been said, that there's a lot of work. No, but really it means that we need to think how we will reach the audiences or people we would like to be reached. Let's say if you have a library in a capital city, you are competing with all the events, with all the news, with all the media, with all the social channels, with all the Netflixes and everything that is happening. And you are just one of the many possibilities a person has in a day to think about, not even to engage with. So you will not be able to reach all of the people, but it's important that you are inclusive and that you enable information about what you are doing to the potential user, to the potential visitor, to the potential donor, to everyone that can or should be part of the community, of the engagement group, of the life you are building within the activity. So, you know, for library, it's always a person that comes in, but it's also all the people that could come in and maybe now don't because of different reasons. And also it goes the other way. Libraries are already doing amazing things and maybe we don't know about them enough. Maybe the donors don't know enough, maybe the cities don't know enough. We need to be able to promote the good things we are doing. And this is not maybe we are not so used of doing that, and that's also ours. We forget, maybe we don't have people, but it's nice to say what we are good at, what we are doing, to put this out there, to turn to media, to know maybe who's a local reporter that really covers this topic and could spread the information even more. You can also search for alliances here, for partnerships here, and find the best possible way to communicate things. But here I think it comes with exclamation mark, because maybe not also all the things need to be communicated, and maybe some of the processes can be low-key, can be secluded, can be special, and then there are others where you say, okay, this is a really important public event, let's spread it out. So you also need to again return to what Maya said. What kind of resources do I have? What kind of money I have also to spend? How much time do I have to implement the communication strategy? So there's a lot of things to think about. And in the end, I think it's up to each organization and individual to set where communicatively they feel good. And that's why also we always try to set, let's say, a vibe or a tone of how we are communicating matters. And from project to project, from target group to target group, this can be really different. Also here, if you're doing internationally, you have to think what is for whom. If you have a project for elderly people, probably it will be harder to have the whole project communicated in English. So we'll have to turn to national languages. So you also have to think what you will do and communicate in English or in international languages, and what are the activities that are needed to be implemented in local and communicated in local languages.
Kaya, why do we wish for results to outlive our projects?
Because probably this is why we are doing it. You know, we often also search for grants and for opportunities, of course, because we also need these funds, you know. Because we want to prove that we have a concept that is worth being financed, because maybe this is our need to go further from, I don't know what, with public yearly given grant we can do, and we want to expand our field of expertise of what we are doing. But we are doing all this, and you always return to the social cause, so you are doing this for something good. And this something good you want that outlives the project. If it's alive only for the duration of the project, then you are always limited with the person that is financing you, and you are always in sort of, will we get it, will we don't, what if we don't? So we need to plan whatever we are doing. It's like seeds, that we will put something in soil, we will water it, but then at some point it's nice that it flourishes on its own. We just maybe take a bit care of it, but it's not needed so much effort. And we also like to see, I think, because project work in the end, it's hard. It's time limiting, it can be also frustrated, it's not always the most beautiful thing you are doing, but the reward is really great when you see that, I don't know, you have in your mind how you will create a special corner for young people, and then you see them hanging there and taking that for their own, and this is a good feeling. This is where you feel like the energy that you put into something results in something after the completion. So I think this is something you always have to search for. But on the other side, be realistic that not every project is going to be this super wow thing that will enable library to just be applauded and raise to the next level. But it's small steps. Everything is a small step towards what you are aiming for. So we return back. You need to know why you are doing things you are doing, and then probably, hopefully, after some time, the results will come.
I would just add here one thing, like best practice projects are not the ones who are actually perfect from point A to point Z, but are the ones that are actually handling well everything that is happening between, because always like we have had so many things going on that, like, you know, we have envisioned how certain things will happen, and then of course life happened, COVID happened, so many things have happened. And yeah, it's always about that good practices are the ones who handle as well the conflicts well, who handle the problems well, and in the end still like bring the project till the end, and also like the results that are created maybe outlive, actually, as you have said in the start, outlive the whole story that we have envisioned from the start.
But thinking of that, what are some fails or don'ts in using the results?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Fails in using the results.
We don't have that.
Of course we do. It's as life is. It's never perfect, of course. Yeah, it would be that like we forget to communicate it. This is what happens quite often. You know, we create this amazing toolkit that could actually be used for wider public, but then it stays somewhere in the basis of our web page maybe, or something like that, because it was just like we were running to another project. Sometimes it's like, I don't know, we forgot to translate it, I don't know, didn't have time, and it's not designly perfect, but all of these things happen. And sometimes, like, of course, for the sake of reporting, something needs to be put in, but then you always have time as well to upgrade all of these things. So again, coming to this less is more. Don't be afraid of failures, because they happen to everybody, also to the people who are perfect in project planning and project implementation. And yeah, correct them when you can and best way you can. Also ask for help. Usually the national agencies or institutions who are giving you funds can be flexible. Sometimes you can extend the project if things get wrong. Sometimes you can do something else because you see that the need is somewhere else. So also take all of this into consideration, that it's not like that the project proposal is still a project proposal. It's not the final thing that actually needs to be implemented in the end. As long as you are following your objectives, as long as you are like coming to your aim that you are that you want to achieve, everything is okay, and there is a lot of flexibility possible, and also a lot of creativity in the end, because like it has happened to us so many times that we just needed to find the creative solution and still fulfill, of course, all of the things that we have promised, but then on the other hand, not doing it in the way we have planned it, but maybe sometimes even it turned out to be better. So take these failures into something which is an opportunity to make something better and more creative.
For me, a big no, or the biggest no, is misguiding the target group that you are working for. You know, we have these big words about democracy, about participatory approaches, about two-way communication, about inclusion. So if you are deciding to opening a space for ideas, for contribution, for really active inclusion, you need to do this with sincere purpose. No one is obliged to do that. Nobody is putting you in a position where you have to do that. But if you open a space for that, people trust you, engage, and dedicate their time. So this is something you have to be really respectful of. There are many places they could be and many people that could be joining with, but they decided to be there. And I like to take a really big responsibility when we are implementing things. Especially I had experience when we are including young people and asking for their opinions. They have been so many times photographed, used by local politics to be taken pictures of with them, to a bit discuss, and then nothing happens. So you don't need to open the space, and you can do some things on your own or with other librarians or with other libraries. But if you decide to take part of whatever of participatory process, take it seriously and honestly and communicate with the ones you are including what will happen, and then put an effort into what they did, celebrate it and use it. I think this is probably a biggest no. Don't lose the trust of the people you need in the way.
Using project results after the project ends is crucial to maximize the value and impact of the work that has been done. You can properly document and present results, share and disseminate them, identify opportunities to implement the project results in practice, engage with others, and use the project results as the basis for learning and continuous improvement. Kaya, how is real impact defined?
Real impact is defined by the change you can, in a period, let's say, in the defined period, see. So you have to, again, foresee it. You cannot plan impact, but you can foresee it. So you can envision what the impact of the activities and of the efforts you have put into those activities will result in. So for example, to compare it, let's say that you would like to raise the number of children that have bedtime stories read to them by their parents. Yeah. So you can plan an activities for joint parents and children in the library, and the number of people that will come to those events, the number of books that will be rented out is, let's say, a result, is a concrete measurement. The impact is what will happen after 3-4 years, that you will see that more families are joining the libraries together, that you can see that more children books will be read, that you can see that when a child will come, it will come with different parents, with different people. You can see that organization of events that will be dedicated to families will be greater, that the questions for books that are related to this topic will increase, that the section where you have the parenting books, the questions that will be related where are the books, what and how to read to children will be greater. So that's the impact that you are achieving. So it's not instantly seen, but it's something that still in certain amount of time you can monitor and check if you are going towards that impact, that in the long run is actually why you are doing things.
So it's important to monitor the impact.
It's important to monitor the impact, but because impact is connected to the purpose of your existence as an institution. You exist for various objectives, but you have a purpose why as institutions you exist. And this can be different from other library. And it's interesting how this purpose is defined. But once it is, you need to measure the impact to know, am I going towards my purpose? Did my purpose change? That's also okay. Are we on the right path? Or should we a bit adapt to what we are doing, because right now we are not following why we are existing? So these are quite relevant questions. And we should not be afraid to monitor that and to evaluate our work. It says nothing about our effort if we are derailing sometimes. Also, we have a lot of this within the organization because we work a lot with projects, and sometimes you get lost between one and the other, the objectives, and you're like, okay, are we still doing what we are here for? And it wasn't always the answer, yes, we are. Sometimes we got caught into getting projects because we needed to at that time. But when this is over, when our salaries are okay, then it's time to say, okay, now let's step back. Now let's reevaluate, let's change something, let's add something, let's use this, let's leave that behind. And here, honesty, sincerity, and striving for excellence, it's really important because we do exist. We are not just some organization that exists to exist. If we exist for public purpose, we have to follow that purpose.
And what are the key indicators or metrics that can be used to monitor the impact of a program or intervention?
So again, the first one is within. So how are interventions, how are projects affecting, changing, and supporting us as organization, as institution? The second is, how is this affecting those that are set to be our target groups? So the ones we are existing for. And then the third largest is because we are always part of environment in specific time in history. So how are we affecting the environment in which we are placed and in the society of which we are part of? So when we check this, we look internally, we look towards the ones we are existing for, and then we are looking at the place which we are part of and intervene in.
And how can monitoring and evaluation activities help to identify and in addressing the potential challenges or issues that may affect the impact of a project?
Yeah, again, while we are checking, when we are open to realize if what we are doing is not, I don't want to say right, but it's on track to what we are doing, then we can see if we are derailing, and then we can easier adapt to that. And we have to be flexible when it comes to work and to projects, so that we say, okay, I remember one time when in a project we were trying to reach a group of young mommy entrepreneurs, you know. And they didn't come to events because we needed a lot of time, that we realized they are mummies and their children don't have a place to be. So while they were having lectures, there was a private kindergarten that was open for children to come, and it solved the situation. So it's not necessary that everything is wrong. It just, when you monitor it like that, then you know how to adapt when you face a challenge easier. Sometimes maybe you also don't have a solution, and then you can turn, as we said, to partners, to other supporters, to other stakeholders, or just say, okay, this activity is really not working, let's try something else. And you start from beginning.
You mentioned a good example, but what are some best practices for designing an effective monitoring system to track the impact of a social or environmental initiative?
For me, I can personally speak that sometimes it's really nice that this is a person that it's not close to project. You know, a project is like a child. You talk about proposal, you know, it's almost like a marriage, and then this is a birth of something when you get it. So it's really personal, and sometimes it's hard to see what you're doing right or wrong, and it's even harder to hear that you might be doing something wrong. So to have an external evaluator, or if you are in partnership structure, to have a partner that takes over this, that it's maybe not a lead partner, I think this is really good, really helpful. Also, they are skilled evaluators that know how to monitor, how to process. Now I even learned that some projects have, let's say, a group dynamic coordinator that speak and collaborates with different partners, just taking into account that partners hear each other, that are satisfied, that the risk management is happening on an outside scale. So I would propose that maybe even only at the end and at the middle, that you find a person that it's not really in the project and has the capability to observe and to not be personally attached to this. Maybe you can also share some of your experience. But
yeah, I think it's actually really crucial when we are speaking about these best practices that communication is the key. Because like before, sometimes like we are already at the end of the project and we figure out that like a lot of things did not go as planned. So it's really important to kind of have these check-ins in between how we are doing, if everybody feels well, where do they need the support to actually be able to implement all of these tasks that they need to implement, because yeah, it's a lot like marriage, it's a lot like handling different relationship, and it's as well that we have very different working habits sometimes, so also kind of setting so-called brave space in the start of the project where each partner is really able to say like what is important to them, and then follow this and like check on different stages of the project how we are doing. This is actually, I think, one of the crucial things. As Kaya said, like external people can always help, because also like we are sometimes so into the content and into the implementation that it's hard to see some of the errors. But yeah, I would say that a person who is coming from outside and just giving us like some blind spots that we have can always be a help as well.
And how can stakeholders be engaged in the monitoring process to ensure the transparency and credibility of the impact assessment?
Yeah, I would say external evaluators, because they really come and bring the insight to fulfill these blind spots that I have mentioned before. Researchers from the universities who are expert on the topics and can really help us to see some other spots that maybe we didn't see before. And yeah, also like different stakeholders such as municipality that might see where are the missing pieces in our local community, and libraries could fulfill it. And really like being open to this, that like if we don't know how to do something, to really search for help, because this is the most crucial thing, that like being stuck in your vision and like not sometimes leave the open space for someone to contribute. It might be really constraining, but like just opening the space for somebody else from the outside to see and bring the added value to the projects can make a huge difference.
So the most important thing is monitoring impact is crucial for assessing progress, identifying areas for improvement, and ensuring accountability and transparency. Key indicators for monitoring impact include qualitative and quantitative data, outcome and impact indicators, and stakeholders' feedback. Monitoring and evaluation help address challenges by identifying bottlenecks, enabling timely adjustment, and supplying adaptive management. Best practices for designing an effective monitoring system involve setting clear goals, selecting relevant indicators, ensuring data quality, and involving stakeholders. Engaging stakeholders in the monitoring process through collaboration, transparency, and effective communication enhances the overall impact assessment. Maya, what methods collect quantitative data for monitoring impact?
Yeah, so first of all, it would be surveys, so that we are really mindful about this from the start. That we create, let's say, evaluation forums or the surveys that we give to people after each of the activities that we are implementing. It also goes the same with like monitoring. For example, if we think about it, we want to attract more young readers into the library, that we really like monitor the numbers that are happening. Which is crucial. So we use different methodologies, of course, like some might be really like still like in hands, just like writing how many people have come. Others are very much more like digital, and that we use like really different metrics, the one that really suits to us. So we can create as well the so-called like before and after surveys, so that we monitor what has been happening before the start of the project and what kind of change that we have to achieve at the end of the project. So there is as well a possibility of a focus group, for example, that we monitor, like a group of people who would attend, like, let's say, different parts of the project, different events, and see what actually happened in the end. So how was the feeling, what was the knowledge before we have done this, and then also at the end of the project.
And what about the quantitative data monitoring?
Yeah, so the quantitative, it's all about the numbers. If we are talking about quality, it's about the impact that it's more visible in the change of habits, let's say, that like as Kaya has mentioned before, that we would have more families who would come to the library, more families that would end their evenings with like really reading the stories, like more enthusiasm about reading as such. And then when it comes to quantitative, of course, about measurement, it's usually like measurement the people. Also, like, for example, if we have created a new book that will be now available in our library, it would be about how many times people have picked it up, or like we're reading it in the library. So, or like how many times our digital tool has been used, how many times people have come to our web page, how many times they have, I don't know, used the mentoring or something that we are offering to them. So it's really about like coming back to key indicators. It's about this, like that we really think about what kind of key performance indicators we want to measure with quantitative methodologies.
What innovative techniques or technologies improve impact monitoring?
Yeah, nowadays we have huge help of course, digital tools and as well artificial intelligence. It's much more easy to analyze the data, I have to say. Also, like now when we are trying certain things out, it can be a great contribution. So also, like, really it's worth researching about all the possibilities that artificial intelligence is giving to us, because I think it will be as well for the monitoring and for seeing the impact of the project. It will be a huge help in the future. So yeah, talking about the innovation, like there are various tools which are way more interactive. I think if somebody says survey to us, we are all like, oh, not one survey again, please. But on the other hand, we have tools like, for example, we are using Typeform, which is one of the very innovative tools on how to structure the surveys. So it's actually a bit more interactive. It's a bit like how that the person would speak to you, asking you questions in a bit more informal way, which can sometimes be a much nicer way than like really this EU survey or some other tools which are like Google Forms, which we probably all know. So it can be really like, I think crucial point is as well to create a nice visual identity, because a lot of people are really visuals, and it really helps. If something is designed nicely, it attracts us, and it will be way better for us, that we would with a bit more enthusiasm fill in the survey. So there are small things which can actually help us to improve this. And also then, like I would say, a personal contact with people, sometimes even one-on-one conversation, like what did this project bring to you? Do you see any difference? So really kind of monitoring as well in this personal forum that we have a bit forget about, I think, in the world, that it's way too fast. But sometimes we have, when we were trying to search for some innovative practices, also like some interviews that we did, or asking a journalist to actually write about the story, what kind of change this project brought to certain people. It was actually a very beautiful outcome about this, that you see that it's worth doing this kind of things, and that they actually have huge impact on people and on the communities in the end.
And what about how can participatory approaches and community engagement be integrated into monitoring methods?
Yeah, I think this has a lot of potential that it's not used yet. We are lately working a lot on citizen science as well, which is one of the approaches where it's really about connecting communities and like bringing the the individuals and the community into practices as well, of like seeing what kind of change can we achieve with certain projects. When we are talking about community spaces, and library for sure is one of the community space, it's really important also that like people who would maybe not come to the events but are still coming to pick up the books, how can we think about the little things, how can we engage as well these people into certain projects that we are implementing, whether we give them something to test maybe, whether we ask them for 5 minutes to do a short conversation with them to again come back to the needs analysis, and that we can kind of get the data for the new projects we want to implement. But like it all comes to this, that we are open for people that they are contributing to the project that we are doing, and also that like once we monitor what has actually been happening during some projects and what the results brought as well to them, it's important to be open about this. Would you like to add something?
Here, maybe some of the things we did in the past are worth saying so that it's clear what we are talking about. So, for example, we had a closed road that became pedestrian road and was before dedicated also to cars and other motorcycle wheels. But what we did is we opened the place, we spread paper on the floor on 2 kilometers, and people draw how they see the future of the coast. That's one way. Then we had coffees with young women in the old city center. Then we did a walk, and they point us to the points where it was dangerous, where they feel safe. And so we prepared a map of safe locations and challenges of the cities. We did cycling tours where cyclists put where water tanks need to be put, where the road is not safe to ride, and we send this to municipalities so that they can fix these special parts. So when it comes to library, my first imagination is in what kind of state are the books that you are renting, you know? To find a system where a person can instantly say, okay, this one is ripped, here something is missing, the condition is there. So where is the active part of citizenship that can come in from the visitors or from stakeholders, from libraries? There are some points where people can and have the data that maybe you need, and they can really easily share this data with you, and it comes really useful for you. So they become sort of civic monitors for you. You just have to include them in the right way.
And what about how can data from multiple sources and methods be validated and enhanced for impact monitoring?
Yeah, so you can have already some gathered data. For example, how are children reading? How's their reading capabilities? You already have data how on other side what is happening with books purchases, you know, how many cartoons are being watched in which language, I don't know. So when you cross that data, you may find interesting thing that each individual research cannot produce on its own. But again, here it is really important what you are searching for. If this can maybe then give you an answer what kind of books you have to buy, what kind of projects you have to do, what kind of impact you're making. Is this changing with your projects that you're having? Is a new location of the library changing the dynamic of literacy in this area? So you can approach the challenge, the issue from various sources. And again, I'm returning to the thing that we usually like to think that what we are doing is unique. And we are all thinking that we are doing really unique work, when actually we have like a clouds of similar aims and interests, that we are really more connected than probably we also think. So it's really nice to look what else exists and find alliances, especially when tackling such important and big challenges like reading deficit of, let's say, young generation.
So the most important thing is clearly define project objectives and outcomes. Establish key performance indicators aligned with objectives. Develop a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation plan. Collect and analyze data regularly to track progress and impact. Seek feedback from stakeholders and use it for further reference. Maya, if you can define specific data needs aligned with project goals.
Yeah, so coming back again to strategies and to what we want to achieve with the projects, it's important that we figure out what kind of data we already have and what kind of data will we collect in the framework of the project. So that's why I know that majority of us who is dealing with humanistic or more societal challenges, Excel sheets are something which might be a nightmare sometimes, but we need it as well. So it's part of what we need to do in order to fulfill what we are actually aiming for. So setting sometimes a very simple Excel sheet with what kind of data we want to collect, so that we really start with the starting point. And also actually, as a project manager, I think one of the best things in the end is to see what kind of path you walked through and like where did you come. It's also really important to see this also, like, of course, for the donors who are giving us money, so we are able to contribute to societal changes, but then again also like to see how many things we have achieved. So it's really important to set the indicators that we want to put this data in, and then like monitor where are we coming.
Are there any other important points that needs to be keep in mind in terms of collecting data?
Yeah, that we are doing it regularly. This is for sure very important, because sometimes at the end of the project it's a bit hard to kind of look back, especially if we have like 3-year project, for example. That's why it's really like crucial that we do it really regularly, that we set certain points of the project where we will have this check-ins and see where we are in order to fulfill all of the needs that we have promised that we will. Then as well asking partners to do that as well, because sometimes as project leaders we forget as well that like also partners need to do that. So being mindful about that and regularly reminding them to send you like the midterm report and stuff like that. And then as well communicate these numbers with the communicational, as we have been discussing before about the communicational plan, that we don't forget to do like an infographics or something similar to actually share all of this data that we have collected in a friendly and especially like the way where it reaches our target groups in best way possible. And this is also a very good advocacy tool, so showing what we have achieved with certain projects. It might give us a better space as well when we are advocating for more money with municipality, showing them that we have received as well funds from European Union can be a great contribution, that they would give us more money as they see that like we are also like fundraising on our own. So all of these like small things can really contribute in the end that we can function better.
You want to add something, Kaya?
I agree.
Good. Okay. Most important thing is to collect qualitative and quantitative feedback, define specific data needs aligned with project goals, select appropriate data collection methods, design clear and concise data collection tools, provide training to data collectors for consistency, ensure data quality through checks and validation. Thank you for your attention, and we wish you good luck with the implementation of your projects.